My name is Clara. I'm 29 years old. I live in a small, quiet town by the river. People here know each other's names, wave when they pass by, and smile like nothing in the world could ever go wrong. For a long time, I believed my life was perfect. I was married to James, the kindest man I'd ever met. He's 31, calm, intelligent, thoughtful. He worked from home as a copywriter, crafting words that made other people feel something. I used to joke that he had a way with sentences, but he'd always say, "I only write well when I'm writing about you." And maybe that was part of what made me love him so much. He made me feel seen. In a world that moves so fast, James looked at me like he wanted time to slow down. Our home sat at the end of a quiet street. We had a garden, a wooden bench under a tree, and windows that filled the house with sunlight. I worked as a supervisor at a local grocery store. My hours were long and tiring, but every time I walked through that front door, the world softened. Dinner would be ready. James would smile, and I would breathe again. We had routines, little rituals that made life feel safe. Morning coffee, evening walks, Sunday pancakes. It wasn't a love full of fireworks or grand gestures. It was quiet, steady, gentle. I thought that was enough. I truly believed nothing could disturb the peace we'd built together. But then she moved in. Her name was Isabel. She arrived on a golden morning in spring. I was watering the rose bushes when I saw the moving truck pull up to the house next door. That house had been empty for months. At first, I didn't think much of it. I waved to the movers, then went back to trimming the lavender. Later that afternoon, I saw her. She was standing on her porch, holding a box, looking at the sky like she wasn't sure whether it was safe to breathe. She was beautiful, not in a loud, obvious way, but delicate, graceful. She had long, dark hair, light eyes, and this quiet sadness in the way she held herself. I walked over with a smile. "Hi, I'm Clara. I live next door." She turned and gave me a small, tired smile. "I'm Isabel. It's nice to meet you." Her voice was soft, almost too soft. We spoke for a while. She told me she'd just moved from another town, that she had gone through a difficult divorce, that she wanted to start fresh somewhere quieter. There was something in her tone, like she was trying not to cry. I felt my heart ache a little for her, and so I said, "If you need anything, help with boxes, information about the area, or just company, you can knock on our door anytime." Her eyes lit up. "That's very kind. Thank you, Clara." That was how it began. The first few visits felt innocent. Isabel stopped by once or twice that week. She brought over muffins, still warm from the oven. She told me she used to bake when she was sad, that it helped calm her down. I invited her in, made tea, and we chatted about small things. The weather, the neighborhood, life. Sometimes James would join us for a few minutes, say hello, then go back to work. I noticed how Isabel watched him, not obviously, but with a kind of attentiveness. I told myself I was imagining it, that she was just lonely, She often looked that way, lonely. One evening, I came home after a particularly long shift. My back ached, my feet hurt, and my mind was spinning from hours of customers and fluorescent lights. But as I opened the door, I smelled cinnamon, Isabel's muffins, and there she was standing in my kitchen, laughing at something James had just said. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. "You're home early," he said. "I finished a bit sooner today," I replied, trying to sound cheerful. Isabel turned. "Hi, Clara. I brought over some banana bread. James helped me figure out how to fix my oven." I stayed for tea. She looked so comfortable, like she belonged there. That night, something shifted in me. The doubts began as whispers. Why was she coming over so often? Why did she never drop by when I was home, only when James was alone? Why did the muffins keep coming, warm and wrapped in kindness? I asked James once, lightly, playfully. "She really likes your company, doesn't she?" He laughed. "She's just being friendly. I think she appreciates that we've welcomed her. You know, she doesn't have anyone else around." And that made sense. It did. But still, the whispers didn't stop. Then came the scarf. It was a rainy Wednesday evening. I had just kicked off my shoes when I noticed something colorful on the couch. A scarf, bright, silky, not mine. I picked it up slowly. The scent of floral perfume lingered. And then I remembered Isabel wore that scarf a few days ago. I had seen it when we chatted by the mailbox. My hands trembled as I folded it. I didn't say anything that night. I couldn't. But deep inside, something cracked. From that day on, I started watching more closely, quietly, carefully. When Isabel visited, did James smile differently? Did she laugh a little too long? Did she touch his arm a second too much? I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was being unfair. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. And still, I said nothing. Because the truth is, sometimes it's easier to lie to yourself than to accept that your peaceful world is changing. That maybe, just maybe, the storm is already inside your house. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It's not the quiet of a Sunday morning or the hush of snowfall outside your window. It's the silence between two people who used to understand each other and now sit across from one another, both pretending everything is fine. That was the silence in our home. The day I found her scarf wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. After that, I noticed more. Isabel had started dressing differently nicer. She wore soft dresses and perfect makeup, even if she said she was just running errands. She wore lipstick in the middle of the day, always when James was home, never when I was. It was subtle, but I saw it. She knocked more often, brought cookies, asked James to help fix her TV, her garden light, her kitchen drawer. Always when I was away, James would tell me later, casually. She needed help with her sink again. She brought some pie. You should try it. She says you're lucky to have me. That last sentence hit something in me I didn't know was there. Was I lucky? Or was I starting to lose something I hadn't even realized was fragile? Then came the Tuesday afternoon I'll never forget. I finished work early. My manager let me go home a bit ahead of schedule. I felt light, almost excited, thinking about surprising James, maybe making tea, enjoying the rare gift of time together in the middle of the week. The house looked peaceful when I pulled into the driveway. I stepped inside quietly, not wanting to startle him. That's when I heard laughter. A woman's laughter. Hers. And then his. It came from the kitchen. My feet felt heavier with each step I took. When I reached the doorway, I saw them. Isabel standing by the table, holding a cup of tea. James sitting, smiling at something she had just said. They looked like two old friends, too comfortable, too familiar. Isabel looked up and smiled without a flicker of guilt. Clara, you're home early. I was just telling James about the cat I saw climbing into my flower pot. It was hilarious. James glanced at me. His smile faded just slightly. Hey, sweetheart, I didn't expect you yet. I nodded, trying to steady my voice. I finished early today. Isabel took another sip, then placed her cup down. Well, I should head back. Thank you for the tea, James. And just like that, she left. When the door closed behind her, the silence returned. But this time, it wasn't uncertain. It was loud, screaming inside me. That evening, we sat on the couch, pretending to watch TV. I wasn't watching anything. I was watching him, his hands, his eyes, his body language. Then, softly, I said, "She's here a lot when I'm not." He paused. "Yes, sometimes. She drops by." I swallowed hard. "James, do you think she's just being friendly?" He looked at me. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "Clara, she's going through a hard time. She's alone. She doesn't have friends here. She probably just needs someone to talk to. But it's not just talking," I said. "She brings food. She laughs at all your jokes. She touches your arm when she speaks. She left her scarf here, James." He ran a hand through his hair. "She's just grateful. I don't think she means anything by it." I looked down at my hands. "I feel like she wants you." There was a long pause. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. "You're imagining things." That night, I barely slept. His words echoed in my head. You're imagining things. Was I? Was I creating stories out of fear? Or was I seeing what I wasn't ready to accept? The worst part was I didn't even know what I feared more, that I was wrong, or that I was right. Then came the moment that changed everything. The following morning, James left his phone on the coffee table. He was in his office, on a call. I stared at that phone for minutes. I hated the idea of snooping. I'd never done it before. We trusted each other, but trust had started to feel like a fragile vase, already cracked. And I needed to know. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. One new message from Isabel. "Thank you for today. You're always so sweet. I wish you were mine." I stopped breathing. Read it again and again. Then I put the phone down. It was like my heart had left my body, like I was watching myself from somewhere far away. I felt sick, cold, but more than that, I felt betrayed. Not by her, by him, because he didn't see it. Or maybe he didn't want to. I stood up, and I walked straight to Isabel's house. I didn't knock gently this time. I knocked firmly. Clearly, she opened the door, smiling, wearing another delicate dress, hair done like she was expecting someone else. "Clara," she said, with that soft voice. What a surprise. I didn't return the smile. "I saw your message to James." Her face didn't change. She didn't flinch. She didn't look guilty. She simply leaned against the doorframe and said, "Oh, that." Then she laughed. "Clara, he's a lovely man, and he's very available when you're not around, isn't he?" My heart pounded. She wasn't even pretending anymore. I took a step back, not out of fear, but to remind myself not to fall into anger. "You crossed a line," I said. She shrugged. "Maybe, but you can't blame a woman for wanting something better, can you?" I didn't answer. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just turned and walked away. Back at home, James was still working. I walked in slowly, calmly, as if I hadn't just heard someone try to steal the man I loved with a smile on her face. I held his phone out to him. He looked at the screen. Read the message. His eyes widened. His mouth opened, but no words came. "I spoke to her," I said. "She doesn't even hide it, James. She wants you. She thinks I'm not enough." He sat down, looking like the air had been pulled from his lungs. "I didn't know," he said. Clara, I swear to you, I didn't know. She said you were available when I wasn't here." He looked up at me, wounded. "I never gave her anything, Clara. I never." "I'm not talking about what you gave her," I interrupted. "I'm talking about what you let her take." There was silence, a different kind of silence this time. It wasn't the silence of doubt or fear. It was the silence of truth finally spoken. James promised to cut all contact. He looked me in the eyes and said, "I love you. Only you. I see now what I didn't before. I'll fix this, I swear." And I believed him. But believing him didn't erase the pain. Because once trust cracks, it takes time to rebuild. Even when love is still there. That night, I sat on our bed, staring at the wall. Not crying, not angry, just tired. I had spent so much time wondering if I was enough, wondering if I was imagining things, questioning my own voice. But now I knew I was never crazy. I was never jealous. I was aware. I was protective. I was right to listen to my instincts. And that realization, it was the beginning of something new. Healing doesn't arrive like a storm. It doesn't knock on the door with thunder and lightning. It comes softly, like a slow sunrise after a long, sleepless night. That's how the days felt after the truth came out. Quiet, fragile, real. James kept his promise. He didn't speak to Isabel again. And not long after, she moved out. A truck pulled up early one Saturday morning. Boxes, suitcases, and silence. I watched from our window. I didn't wave. I didn't cry. I just breathed. For the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter. But peace doesn't come just because the problem leaves. Sometimes it stays behind, sitting inside your chest, asking, "What now?" James and I didn't magically return to what we were. We couldn't, because now there was something between us that wasn't there before. A space, a small, invisible distance. It wasn't hatred or blame. It was caution, like two people walking through the remains of a fire, careful where they step, afraid of what still smolders underneath. We started small. He made coffee every morning and left mine by the window, just like before. He asked about my day. I didn't always answer. Some days I couldn't, but I saw the effort. And slowly, I let myself lean in again. One evening, we sat in the garden. The wind was gentle, the sky orange with the last light of day. I looked at him, and I asked the question I had been holding inside me since everything happened. Why didn't you see it? He didn't look away. I didn't want to. He spoke quietly, honestly. She made me feel needed, and I thought I was just helping. But maybe I liked feeling important, and I didn't realize it was costing you something. I nodded. I didn't say much. Sometimes the apology is enough. Sometimes it isn't. But what mattered more to me was this. He wasn't hiding anymore. He wasn't explaining it away. He was seeing it now, and seeing me. Some days were easier, some were not. There were mornings I woke up feeling hopeful, like maybe we'd get through this. And then there were nights I rolled to the far edge of the bed, staring at the wall, wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. That's the truth about healing no one tells you. It doesn't come in a straight line. It wobbles. It returns. It waits. And you have to choose it again and again. One day, I stood in front of the mirror, not to fix my hair or adjust my shirt. I just looked, really looked. For the first time in a while, I saw her, the woman who had doubted herself, who had questioned her worth, who had stayed quiet when something didn't feel right, but also the woman who stood her ground, who spoke her truth, who faced a storm and didn't let it destroy her. I whispered softly to my reflection, "You did good. I'm proud of you." I started doing little things for myself, things I had put aside. I called my sister and talked for hours. I cleaned out the closet, donated old clothes, kept only what made me feel light. I joined a small book club at the library. Every Friday, I sat with women I didn't know, but who smiled at me like we'd met 100 times before. I wasn't trying to run from my pain. I was building a life beyond it. And James, he noticed. One evening, while I was making tea, he said, "You seem stronger lately." I turned and smiled. "I am." He walked over and touched my hand gently. "I'm still here, if you'll have me." There was no pressure in his voice, no fear, just presence. I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't ready to move on, but I was ready to move forward. And sometimes, that's all healing asks of you. Love looks different after betrayal. It's no longer about promises. It's about practice. Small, daily choices. Choosing to listen. Choosing to stay soft even when you want to shut down. choosing to believe that even broken things can hold beauty. We started walking together again. Not every day, but some days. We'd walk by the river, hands brushing gently, talking about books, or just walking in silence. It felt simple again, not easy, but simple. And that, I realized, was a kind of miracle. One day, I told James something I hadn't said before. "I forgive you." He looked at me, eyes soft. "Thank you. I'll never stop trying to deserve that." Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the house began to feel like home again. Not because it was the same, but because we were no longer pretending. We were honest. We were healing. Together. One night, as I lay in bed, I looked around the room. Same walls, same windows, but a new woman. Not the Clara who smiled politely while hurting inside. Not the Clara who silenced her instincts to keep the peace. This Clara was different. Wiser, quieter, stronger, and above all, peaceful, because peace doesn't mean nothing ever goes wrong. It means you know how to find your way back when it does. There's something sacred about choosing peace. Not the kind that's handed to you, but the kind you build for yourself, slowly, gently, deliberately. I used to think peace meant stillness, but now I know peace is strength. It's the quiet refusal to keep carrying what was never mine to hold. Months passed, seasons shifted. Spring became summer, then autumn crept in with golden leaves and cool winds. The rhythm of our lives returned, but it wasn't the same song. It had a different beat, slower, more intentional. James and I had learned to walk together again, but this time we walked with open eyes. No illusions, no pretending, just truth, and a daily choice to show up. I didn't forget what happened. Forgiveness never asked me to. It only asked me to stop bleeding from the same wound. So I stopped looking at Isabel's old house. I stopped replaying her words in my mind. And most importantly, I stopped asking, was I not enough? Because the truth, I was more than enough. I had always been. One evening, we had dinner with friends. It had been a while since we laughed with others. As the plates emptied and the candles flickered low, one of them turned to me and said, "You look different, Clara, like you're lighter." And I smiled, because I was. I wasn't carrying their opinions. I wasn't carrying fear. I had put down the weight of proving my worth. I had chosen something better, myself. I found joy in the smallest things again. Fresh bedsheets, the first sip of tea, reading by the window while it rained. These quiet moments became my sanctuary. I no longer searched for meaning in someone else's attention. I no longer needed validation from anyone outside of me. I was enough, fully, quietly, powerfully. James once asked me, as we sat watching the sunset, "Do you ever wish it had never happened?" I thought for a moment. Then I said, "I wish I had never been hurt. Yes, but I don't wish away the growth." He nodded, his eyes heavy with understanding. Because some things break you, only so you can meet the version of yourself you've been avoiding. Our love changed. It wasn't the wide-eyed love of the early years. It was weathered, softer, less about words and more about presence. He didn't try to win me back with grand gestures. He just stayed, and I didn't love blindly anymore. I loved with my whole heart, but this time I kept a small corner for myself. That corner would never be given away again. One day, I stood at the river alone. It was quiet. A soft breeze moved through the trees. I watched the water flow, constant and calm. And I realized something. The river didn't hold on to anything. It kept moving. That was the peace I had found. Not in pretending things never hurt me, but in knowing I could let them go. I wrote a letter that evening. Not to Isabel, not to James, to myself. It said, "Dear Clara, you walked through doubt, through silence, through betrayal, but you never lost yourself. You were always there, soft, but not weak. You spoke when it mattered. You stayed kind, even when it hurt. You stood tall, even when you were breaking. And look at you now. You are whole, not because someone stayed, but because you chose not to leave yourself. I'm proud of you. With love, me." That letter changed everything. Because healing is never really about the other person. It's about coming back home to yourself. And when you do, you stop chasing closure. You stop needing answers. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You just breathe and live and love again on your own terms. Somewhere along the way, love came back to me. Not just from James, but from within. I started dreaming again. I started planning new things. I started speaking kindly to myself. And when I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw a woman who had been hurt. I saw a woman who had risen. And so, if you're listening to this and your heart feels heavy, if you're doubting your worth, if you're questioning your voice, if you're wondering whether you'll ever trust again, please hear me. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not wrong for wanting honesty, loyalty, tenderness. What happened to you does not define you. How you choose to rise from it does. I don't know where Isabel is now. I don't think about her much. Not because I'm bitter, but because she no longer lives in my mind. She took nothing from me. Because what was truly mine, my dignity, my peace, my strength, could never be stolen. This is how the story ends, not with revenge, not with bitterness, not even with perfect reconciliation. It ends with truth, with courage, with the quiet beauty of starting again. James and I are still together, but not because we pretended nothing happened. We're still together because we chose to rebuild, not on the old foundation, but on new ground. And every day we tend to that ground. We water it, we rest on it, we protect it. And sometimes we simply sit there together, in silence, grateful that we made it through. Because real peace isn't something you find once. It's something you choose, again and again and again. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever walked through betrayal, or found yourself lost in doubt, I hope this gave you a little light. And if you're still healing, take your time. Your peace is coming. It may already be on its way.